guys, it's Allie, and I went to Booknet Fest. This past weekend, I embarked on the social journey that is going to a convention. This particular convention was happening very near me. Booknet Fest is based in Florida, as am I. And for those of you who don't know, Booknet Fest is basically a meeting place for the community that makes up Book Twitter, Book Instagram, Bookstagram, and BookTube, and all of the kind of book blogging, all of the bookish internet, essentially. I would say it is definitely more like a true conference where a bunch of peers within the same community gather together to discuss the state of said community, more so than something like BEA or BookCon, where it seems to me, having not been there, that the focus is much more based on the reader and author relationship and also the consumer and publisher relationship. That is where I went over this past weekend, and lucky for me, I had a fantastic time. Day one of Booknet Fest was actually kind of rough, at least getting there in the first place, because I severely underestimated the amount of time it was going to take me to get ready, and I also had to run to my parents' house before I went to the actual venue because my dad was very graciously allowing me to use his fancy schmancy GoPro and gimbal setup that he has. You will see some of that footage kind of playing around throughout the rest of this video, but getting that GoPro was about 15 minutes out of my way and then all the way back. So by the time that I actually arrived at the venue, it was 10:56 and the schedule said that check-in ended at 11. So trying to be as punctual as I possibly could be, already being very late, I ran to the check-in booth and promptly found Leah, who is the entire reason that I went to this event, just because she is lovely and she told me about the event in the first place, even though she doesn't live in Florida and I do. And also because she said she was going to be there and I wanted to meet her in person. So I promptly went and met up with her, and she very nicely guided me to the check-in table where I picked up my fancy schmancy name tag. The little YouTube pin that's up here was actually given to me, sent to me ahead of time by Leah, and was originally created by Kate from Chapter Kate, so I will leave her information linked below as well. Having that kind of identifier was easier to kind of pick people out, so very appreciative that I had that. And then we went into the keynote speech. The keynote speech at a convention is basically getting everybody hyped up for the event and getting everybody set. So the two creators of the event, Sam and Madi, they both played a little kind of newlywed game and also just gave some information about the event in general. It was at this point that I met a bunch of really nice and fun people, and also met up with people that I already knew of from Book Twitter and BookTube and things like that. So this was a great kind of meetup event that I was able to use to feel a little less awkward, surrounded by people that I'd never met before. After that was lunch, which was somewhat postponed by talking about historical romance in the lobby, and we finally did end up getting some lunch. We went to Wendy's, all very exciting stuff. After that lovely lunch was the first set of panels. You always have multiple choices of where you want to go. Up for offering this time was a panel on rating systems, and then the other panel, which is the one that I ended up going to, was Reading in the Year of Our Lord 2019, which basically just discussed how reading tastes have shifted, how people read books differently, and what are we necessarily looking for in books nowadays that is different from maybe like 4 years ago. And then we moved on to the next round of panels right afterwards. This time slot had 3 options: one panel on adaptations, one on AuthorTube, and one on the Midsummer's Mayhem book club that they were doing. I obviously went to the AuthorTube panel. AuthorTube and BookTube hold a very similar space in the community in terms of YouTube. They're both very bookish, very niche communities, and they're both very tied together. There's a lot of creators that kind of toe the line between both, myself included. But there are also people who are dedicated AuthorTubers and people who take the AuthorTube title to mean something more along the lines of giving writing advice, and other people who take it more the route of just vlogging their experience as writers and talking about their personal experiences with writing. So it was really interesting to see different creators kind of coming from each of those different subcategories of AuthorTube and talking about their experiences and kind of the state of AuthorTube, the same way that those other panels have talked about the state of BookTube and the state of just the bookish internet in general. The third round of panels, I went to a workshop that I had signed up for online, and this workshop was vlogging like a filmmaker. I was lucky enough to get in and get this fun little packet worksheet that I was able to kind of go through and find some very interesting nuggets of information. The main topic of this workshop was to basically say that vlogging is a form of storytelling, and you need to kind of take the viewer through an experience in the same way that you would if you were creating an actual like 3-act structure film. So there were certain things about film theory in there, different types of compositions and shots that you can do, and the difference between content shots and B-roll shots and all of that kind of stuff. I tried to take some lessons from it, but I don't know how well they applied to the rest of my experience at Booknet Fest the next day, but oh well. Finally, after that lovely workshop was the final events of the night. There was going to be a Snark Squad Pod Live, which is hosted by one of the creators of Booknet Fest, Madi, but the guest who was meant to be on Snark Squad Pod was Christine Riccio, but she was unable to make it due to the whole Hurricane Dorian thing, so they actually didn't end up doing that final thing of the night. But that didn't actually change my plans at all for the day, because I was already planning on going to the writers' meetup that was happening in another room. The writers' meetup, we basically just sat in a huge circle and talked about what we were working on and kind of talked about planning versus pantsing and all of the kind of different questions that you come up with when you have a big, huge group of writers in front of you. It was a really, 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 really fun experience, and I ended up being pretty close with a lot of the people in that room over the course of the next day. So let's talk about the next day. I had been invited by Leah and by some of the other writers to do some writing sprints early in the morning before the rest of the events of the day started. I got like 700 words, 770 words I think, written in just like 20 minutes before the first panel started. So that was really fun and really great for me because I have been in a bit of a writing slump lately. So then we went to the first round of panels for the day. This panel lineup was 2 different options. There was one on spoilers and one on book drama in the Booknet community. I went to the latter just because I was really interested to see how the panel would kind of handle the topic. Sometimes whenever drama comes up in a word, you expect everybody to just be like, ooh, tea, and not actually like have a conversation about it. And so I was really pleased that it was very conversation based, and I was really interested in all of the things that each of the panelists had to say. And it was one of those instances where I really just, after every question was asked, I wanted to turn to the other people sitting at my table and be like, interesting, so what do you guys think? So that was really fun as well, and a good start to the rest of the day. But after that, we did end up moving on to the next round of panels. Continuing on with the theme of Saturday being a very writing-focused day for me, I went to the panel on the intersection between reading and writing books. It was just really intriguing to kind of hear about how other people bridge that gap, because I have had my own struggles with kind of deciding how to review books when I am also writing a book myself. And then we moved on to the last panel before lunch, though I didn't move anywhere because I stayed in the same room for 3 panels straight to go to the goth fantasy panel. I mainly went to this panel just because I was intrigued by the nature of what goth fantasy was all about, but in the actual panel it was more explained that goth fantasy in this context meant more just kind of all dark fantasy. It was really interesting kind of hearing what they had to say about their own reading tastes and experiences and their writing tastes and experiences, and also then kind of thinking about that in context of the books that I both enjoy and the books that I write. And then we got to the part that you've all been waiting for, lunch. One interesting thing about lunch, however, is that I did end up going to Noodle and Company with a bunch of those writers that I was mentioning before from the writers meetup and that early morning writing sprint session. And you would think we talked about writing the whole time. No, we didn't. We mostly talked about Disney and Marvel. The last round of panels all sounded really interesting. I actually kind of wish that I could have gone to all of them. There was one on We Don't Just Talk About Books. There was one on authorial intent, which I can talk about authorial intent all day, every day, because I just think it's such an interesting, complex topic to talk about when it comes to the books that we love and the books that we hate. And then finally, there was the thing that I went to, which was a publishing Ask Me Anything. Each of the 3 panelists were on kind of different aspects of the publishing industry, which I think was a very smart, very interesting choice. Paige is self-published, and Taylor is published through an independent publishing house, so it's not like Penguin, it's not like one of the big 5. It is a smaller publishing house based here in Florida. The 3rd member of that workshop was supposed to be Christine to talk about her experience publishing Again But Better, but because she obviously wasn't able to make it, they had Nina Moreno, the author of Don't Date Rosa Santos. They had her on to talk about her experience with traditional publishing. So I was really glad that I was able to hear Nina's specific story and how she was able to publish. I wish that we had been able to have an entire huge panel about all of the different kind of iterations of the publishing experience, but it was great to be able to see these specific three to talk about traditional, independent, and self-publishing, respectively. So it was a super interesting Ask Me Anything. I was really glad that I went, and that ended the Booknet Fest proper in terms of all of the different events that were going on. There was, of course, author signings that occurred at the very end of the event as everybody was kind of filtering out. There was also a book exchange that had been kind of going on all day, and so they were taking last-minute book exchanges where basically if you gave them a book, they would give you a little ticket, and then you could use that ticket to switch it out for a book of your choice. I had not actually brought any books for the book exchange, but because I was one of the last people there, they were kind of desperately hoping that people would take the last couple books. So they were just like, hey, if you want one, take one. And so I ended up grabbing this book, The Dressmaker by Kate Alcott. I've actually read this book before. I have it on Kindle, but I was happy to be able to have it in a physical copy. I have been meaning to reread it, so I'm very excited about that. As for the author signing part of things, I got these two lovely books signed by my friends, and also I got them personalized. Yay! I have these books signed, and here's pages. So, yay! Hope you enjoy it. I did enjoy it. I've already read all of these books. And then it was once again time to say goodbye. Some people for realsies because they were going home and not going to the unofficial Disney day afterwards. And so I, had to hug all those people goodbye and make sure that I had all of their information. Some people still got away and I didn't get their information, so I'll find them. I'll find you somehow. But then there were others who were going to the Disney day, but it was unsure if I was going to meet them there because I had not yet bought my ticket. It was kind of a weird, half goodbye. I gave everybody a hug and was like, bye if I don't see you, but hopefully I will see you. So luckily enough, I did go home and immediately was like, I had too much dang fun today. I had too much dang fun this whole weekend, and I don't want to say bye to these people yet. So I'm going to Disney. And so I did. So I bought myself a ticket, and then the next day, promptly at 4 o'clock, I strolled up into Disney World. The unofficial Disney day was going to the event called Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, which is the kid-friendly version of something like Halloween Horror Nights at Universal or Howl-O-Scream at Busch Gardens. They gave you a little bag and gave you candy and all of that stuff, and they had different people out there handing out treats the whole day. I did meet up with my friends eventually, though I could be lying for all you know because I have absolutely no footage of my friends that I went to Disney with, aside from static shots of the castle and things like that. But I promise I was there, they were there was friendship, and then we kind of just hung out at Disney for the rest of the day. I mean, I won't take you through every single thing we did. We rode a bunch of rides. We rode the Haunted Mansion because it was air conditioned. We rode Splash Mountain because there was water. And we rode Big Thunder Mountain because it was a relatively not so intense roller coaster for some of the people who didn't really like roller coasters in the group. And then we also rode the teacups, and I think that was it. That was all that we rode. But we also saw all of the shows that were going on. We saw the Hocus Pocus show.
What is it, Mary? I smell children. Children!
Saw the parade that occurred, even though there was one dude who very stubbornly stood up almost the entire parade, even though he was in the front row and had absolutely no reason to stand up. I'm very salty, can you tell? And then we also saw the fireworks show. That was pretty much the end of the day. At this point, it was pretty late at night. It was very hot. I was very sweaty. So I did end up deciding to go home. I said a final goodbye to all of my pals that I had made through the journey that was all of Booknet Fest. I am so happy that I was able to go to this event. Major thanks to Leah for coaxing me out of my introverted shell and encouraging me to go to this event, because I probably would not have gone if not for her existence and just the sheer fact that she was going to be there that led me to feel comfortable enough showing up to a convention with a bunch of people that I had only ever seen through a computer screen. I am so glad that I was able to go to this event. I am looking forward to other Bookish events in the future now. I have always kind of not really thought much about going to those kind of events, especially not before I started a BookTube channel myself. But now I'm like, well, Y'all West is coming up. So we'll see. If you guys are going to Y'all West, let me know. Maybe I'll try to make a trip to the Carolinas. So yeah, that is going to be it for me this week. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you were at Booknet Fest and I met you there, hi, I love you. I am very glad that I was able to meet you. I really enjoyed my experience. I really hope to meet more people at more Bookish conventions and at more Booknet Fests in the future. I am so grateful to Leah for convincing me to go to this event, so thankful to Sam and Muddy for creating this event, and so thankful to every single person that I met at this event, who are all, in my eyes, new friends. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like. If you like my content, do subscribe. I make videos every Friday, and I will see you guys in the next one.